That can go on the back.
Yamuna Hatira Manachari Jaya Sadhama Puja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Gopi Janavadha Giri Yasodhanandana Vladajanarandana Yasodhanandana Vladajanarandana Yasodhanandana Vladajanarandana Yasodhanandana Rajanaranjana Kesavanapyari Yamunatira Vanachari Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvrajikacharya Filtara Satis Divine Grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai SCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai BBT Founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Sagaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shishi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Sundar Ki Jai Janitai Gauda Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Devaya Krishna Prasad Vishnu Swami Krishna Prasad. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gavanam Prachani Nuvashesha Shunyamani Paschachadish. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome again for what may be our final morning, unless the bus breaks down and we get to stay in New York overnight and the flight gets canceled or something. We might not want to think about those things. So likely this will be our last opportunity to be with all of you in this format. Before we begin, we just wanted to express our deep gratitude and appreciation to all of you for making this massive trip all the way from the UK, from London to the US. We sincerely feel very grateful to have had the opportunity to associate with each of you at different points in the journey, and appreciate your tolerance and perseverance with us. And thank you very much for your inspiration and association. Anything you want to say?
Agree with what you said.
Okay. My wife is a very simple lady. So today we'll continue our reading from the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're reading chapter 17. And this chapter is entitled Durga Curses Chitraketu. So we'll be continuing. Mother Parvati. Yes. So we'll start with the invocation, so everyone can please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is text 30. Aviveka Krita Pumso. Anyone has the verse? Sorry, chapter 17. If you have it, otherwise we'll just read through and won't do the repetition.
Chapter 17 to
17 text 30. Some of you have it. You want to do the repetition?
Yeah, we just open it.
So Canto 6, chapter 17, text 30, 30. Aviveka Krita Pumso Yarta Veda Ivatmani Gunadosha Vikalpascha Devasra Jivatkritaha Eka Krita Pumso Yarto Vedo Ivatami Gunadosha Vikalpascha Dideva Srajivat Kritaha Aviveka Krita Pumso Yarto Veda Evatmani Gunadosha Vikalpascha Dideva Srajivat Kritaha
Aviveka krita pumso
Aviveka Krita Pumso
Yartha Veda Ivatmani
Yarta Veda Evatmani
Nadosha Vikalpascha
Gunadosha Vikalpascha
It Eva Srajivat Kritaha
Dideva Srajivat Kritaha
Aviveka krita pumso
Aviveka Krita Pumso
Veda Ivatmani
Yarta Veda Evatmani
Guna Dosho Vikalpascha
Gunadosha Vikalpascha
It Eva Srajivat Krita
Dideva Srajivat Kritaha. Ladies, please.
Aviveka krita pumso Yartha Veda Ivatmani Dinasha Vikalpascha
Dideva Srajivat Kritaha. Aviveka Krita Pumso Yarta Veda Evatmani Gunadosha Vikalpascha Vasrajabhadvitaha
Avivekam
Yadavayavadvani Anudosavikamscha Eva Sujavakrita. Word for word. Aviveka kritaha, done in ignorance, without mature consideration. Pumsaha, of the living entity. He, indeed, artabedaha, differentiation of value. Eva, light. Atmani, in himself. Gunadosha, of quality and fault. Vikalpaha, imagination. Cha, and. It, difference. Eva, certainly. Shraji, in a garland. But, like. Kritaha, male. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
As one mistakenly considers a flower garland to be a snake or experiences happiness and distress in a dream, so in the material world, by a lack of careful consideration, we differentiate between happiness and distress, considering one good and the other bad. The happiness and distress of the material world of duality are both mistaken ideas. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchilila 4.176, it is said, Vate Badra Badra Kyane Saba Mano Dharma, E Vala E Manda E Saba Brahma. The distinctions between happiness and distress in the material world of duality are simply mental concoctions, for the so-called happiness and distress are actually one and the same. They are like the happiness and distress in dreams. A sleeping man creates his happiness and distress by dreaming, although actually they have no existence. The other example given in this verse is that a flower garland is originally very nice, but by mistake for want of mature knowledge, one may consider it a snake. In this connection, there is a statement by Prabodhananda Saraswati, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. Everyone in this material world is distressed by material conditions, but Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati says that this world is full of happiness. How is this possible? He answers, Yat Karunya Kataksha Vaibhava Vatam Tam Guram Evastam. A devotee accepts the distress of this material world as happiness only due to the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By his personal behavior, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed that he was never distressed but always happy in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. One should follow in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and engage constantly in chanting the Maha Mantra.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Then he will never feel the distresses of the world of duality. In any condition of life, one will be happy if he chants the holy name of the Lord. In dreams, we sometimes enjoy eating sweet rice, sometimes suffer as if one of our beloved family members had died. Because the same mind and body exist in the same material world of duality when we are awake, the so-called happiness and distress of this world are no better than the false superficial happiness of dreams. The mind is the via medium in both dreams and wakefulness, and everything created by the mind in terms of sankalpa and vikalpa, acceptance and rejection, is called manodharma or mental concoction.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuromilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manojishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadabhayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Isha Shri Rupam Savijatam Sagara Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavanishwari Shabanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Vancha Kalpataruyascha Vipasitudhyeva cha Patiranam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Maha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Let's do the verse again. Aviveka kritapumso yarto beda ibatmani guna dosha vikalpascha bid eva srajivat kritaha. As one mistakenly considers a flower garland to be a snake, or experiences happiness and distress in a dream, so in the material world, by a lack of careful consideration, we differentiate between happiness and distress, considering one good and the other bad. So yesterday we did text 29 and we had a acronym. Anyone remembers what the acronym was for yesterday? Back. And B stood for?
Backstory.
Backstory, yes. And A stood for?
Attachment to the service.
Attached to service, yes. C stood for?
Criticism.
Criticism, yes. And K was? The Krishna factor, yes. Very good. At least those who are sitting in the front, anyway. Uh-huh. So, today we also have an acronym for this class. And yesterday was what happened. Today is what's going to happen. And so therefore we're looking forwards. So the acronym is FORE, F-O-R-E, forwards. And so we'll start with the F. And F, yesterday B stood for backstory. Today F stands for future story. Okay, so yes, what is the future story? What awaits? Yesterday in the backstory we heard that King Chitraketu was a very pious king. He had the wonderful association of Angira Muni and Narada Muni. He got their blessings. He had a son named Rishishoka, who was immense happiness and joy, but also the cause of great lamentation. After this devastating experience for him, he took shelter of Narada Muni, who gave him initiation, granted him a wonderful mantra. By the use of that mantra, he attained great benediction, became king of the Vidyadharas, was traveling around on his palatial building, but he also got the direct darshan of Lord Sankarshan. And Lord Sankarshan granted him perfection just by having the darshan. His life was perfected, but also he assured him that his life would be perfected. Then he interacted with Lord Shiva, and these verses, by the way, are being spoken by Lord Shiva. And so we're going to bring us right up to the point of where these verses are being spoken. And also to remember that the Bhagavatam is not chronological. It's not happening always in chronological order. So actually, the future has already been spoken, and now the past is being reflected upon. So that's actually what's kind of happening. So after we heard yesterday, after the interaction where King Chitraketu saw Parvati sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva in the midst of an assembly of great sadhus and renunciants, he chuckled, simply chuckled, thinking, wow, Lord Shiva is so amazing that he can sit in class with his wife on his lap. And I mentioned yesterday we were going to also do that, but we decided to be appropriate. We didn't want anyone laughing at us. So because of that chuckle, Lord Shiva heard it, all the sadhus heard it, but Lord Shiva, he remained silent. He remained quiet. He didn't react because he understood it was inappropriate. But anyway, he was doing it because he was thinking, what a great personality I am. In one sense, he was not offensive. He didn't take offense. But Parvati Devi didn't feel quite the same, as sometimes is the case. If the husband is attacked, then the women can become like lionesses, and they can, yeah, so don't mess with me or my wife will beat you up, okay? So like that, then they can become very protective. And she cursed King Chitraketu. And what did she curse him? Did we discuss yesterday? That's right. We didn't discuss yesterday. We left that. It was the kind of cliffhanger. So she cursed him to become a demon. Very nice. Thank you, Parvati Devi. Now, Chitraketu was already on the platform we discussed yesterday. Some acharyas say the platform of Bhava. Some say even he was on the platform of Prem because he had already direct darshan and been blessed by the Lord. So King Chitraketu had a choice to make at that point, just as we all have a choice to make at every moment. The one thing that we have is minute free will. So often we may think someone does something to us, and instead of responding, we react. So fortunately, King Chitraketu was able to create space between the cause and the response, and he actually decided that the correct thing to do was to not try to refute the curse. And he actually went to Parvati Devi, he bowed down, he apologized, he accepted the curse. He also stated that I really didn't mean any ill will, but if you felt that I had offended you, then I deserve to be cursed by you, and therefore I accept the curse. Now, this in and of itself is a massive lesson because most of us would probably counter curse and get into, like we discussed yesterday, the whole situation between Daksha and Shiva and all of his associates in the beginning of the fourth canto. So, but King Chitraketu just accepted the curse, and then he recited some amazing prayers and some statements of deep philosophy. And after that, he boarded his transcendental airplane and he flew off into the distance. But that left Parvati and Shiva and all the sadhus sitting around, and Parvati was shocked that King Chitraketu had just so humbly accepted the curse and also spoken so deeply philosophical. And Lord Shiva expressed, yes, because now you have seen a true Vaishnava. This is a Vaishnava. This is the way that a Vaishnava conducts himself, an advanced devotee. So, as we've discussed at different times throughout our journey together, sometimes the Lord will arrange, not sometimes actually, we were just reading in Brihad Bhagavatam Rita, that there are two types of difficulties in the life of a devotee. Srila Sanatana Goswami explains that either it's a difficulty, a devotee is put into difficulty specifically by the Lord in order to glorify him. In order to glorify him, the Lord will put us into difficulty in order for us to be glorified, because the devotee will never give up the Lord no matter how difficult. And this is discussed in Brihad Bhagavatamrita when Hanuman is glorifying the Pandavas. And he's talking about how they were put through so much distress, but the Lord literally will reside with them, becomes their charioteer, becomes their messenger, because they never give up on him, no matter how difficult things are. And the other type of distress, which actually comes a little bit later, because when Narada Muni goes to visit the Pandavas, he hears Yudhisthira saying, maybe we should create some awkward situation so that we can get Krishna to come back to Hastinapur, because we want him to come. If I just invite him for a yajna, it'll take too long. But we know if we create some distress, then he'll come quickly. So Sanatana Goswami explains that actually these two types of difficulties are the ones created by the Lord and the ones created by the devotees themselves, just simply to invoke the Lord's presence in their life. So these are the only two kinds of distress. So if you ever have any other distress, know that it has to be one of these two, okay? So like that. So anyway, the future story is that just think such an exalted Vaishnava on such a high level of devotional service, and what is his future? He gets to become a demon. Haribol! Isn't that great? Isn't that what we're all looking forward to? Okay, so let's hear what the Lord has to say.
So the O in the word for stands for opposites. So as Prabhupada explains in the purport, happiness and distress, these are all, there's no distinction in the material world. And he's comparing this to like when you have a dream. I think he gave the example of eating sweet rice. I've actually had dreams like that, eating sweet rice. And I'm actually eating big plate of rice bug, and then you wake up, oh, it's only a dream. I'll never get that. It's quite upsetting, but there's happiness and distress. But I was thinking that in this case, as you were saying, that Parvati, for her, she couldn't accept that Lord Shiva had been disrespected. Up until this point, she's sitting with her husband, appropriately or inappropriately, but she was okay. And she was surrounded by his followers, his disciples, as it were, and life was good. And then when she sees, why is this man like laughing? Why there's some so then for her, well, immediately there's a switch. It's the same situation, but there's a switch, and it's like, oh, I'm not happy now. I'm in distress. And for her to respond is another example that was being said. In one sense, basically, ultimately, to glorify the Lord's devotee, Chitraketu, because the way she responds is immediate. What do you think? What is that? She curses him. The way Chitraketu responds is he's in control of us with the mind and the senses. He could have easily said, woman, what do you think you're doing sitting on this man's lap and all these things? I mean, it could have got ugly, but he actually just responds in control of the mind and senses and offers prayers, and then he simply walks away. And that's a power in itself. That's a superpower in itself, actually, to be able to do that, to be able to be and not to feel you have to defend, not to feel, well, I'll get a few words in and hit below the belt and then walk away. And the reason for this is because of the glorious nature of Chitraketu, as we were saying in the previous verse, that his spiritual foundation is so strong and he's so focused on the Lord that this little swaying like we saw outside the wind, the swaying of the trees, as it were, the wind, it doesn't bother him because he's focused. As we were saying in the verse yesterday, he's aware of the goal, as it were, to be Krishna conscious, and he remains focused on that, so he can respond or not appropriately. But if we allow the senses to reign over us, then we do feel happiness, the distress, this emotion, that emotion, and we get pulled by that. So, yeah, I thought that was a very powerful lesson, which is so much to unpack in itself. As Prabhupada is saying, we create our own happiness and distress. The one, the one sort of stable point, as it were, in our life is Krishna and Krishna consciousness. But we allow ourselves to be pulled this way and that way through so-called conceptions, as it were. This is not nice, or that was rude, or you shouldn't have spoken like that. Well, no, now I'm really happy. No, this person's really nice. But we create it. But as Chitraketu showed, we just remain focused.
So that brings us to the R in 4, and the R stands for real. Real. So F stood for future story. O, opposites, and R stands for real. So the question is, what is real then? What is real? If we can't go by the general assessment of something being good and something being bad, and we can all agree, but really, do we all agree? Right? Yesterday, for prasadam, some people were like, of course, generally pizza is like, yes, everyone loves pizza, but someone told me that no, some devotees want khichdi. So they heated up the khichdi, and then, different people have different tastes, right? Isn't it? Like they brought out the spicy sauce, and some people were like, no, 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 and other people were like eating it like sabji. So, so there are different flavors, different tastes, different types of people. We all have different natures and different likes and dislikes. And we were walking the other day. We were in New York, and one in New York City, people just take stuff out from their apartment, their flat, and leave it on the street all the time. Literally, the first month we were there, we realized we could have fully furnished our entire apartment with stuff from the street. Of course, my wife wasn't into that, but so, so but and one man, he picked up this thing. He said, "Oh, I'm going to make this kind of thing." And I said, "Isn't it amazing? One man's junk is another man's treasure." So it's like that. So actually, what may be good for one person may not necessarily be good for another. And what was it? There was a story, I think, Prabhupada tells of boy who becomes sick, and the doctor tells him not to feed him anything because he'll die. But the boy is like so sick, and then I forget whether it was the brother or someone, I think it was his brother, right? Who thought, oh no, my poor brother, I have to feed him something. And then he fed him something, and he basically, because he fed him, then he died. So like that, the point is that what we may think is good for us sometimes isn't. And what we may think is bad for us sometimes turns out to be, as we said yesterday, sometimes from the most difficult situation, the most wonderful jewels manifest. So, what is real? I remember hearing early on, His Holiness Jaiweta Maharaj, he made a statement that actually, when things are going bad in life, anyone's experienced things going bad in life from time to time? Yeah. He said, actually, when things are going bad in life, that's when you should be the most happy. He said, because it's only a matter of time before the bad ends and the good starts. He said, the time when you should be really worried is when things are going good. Because it's only a matter of time before that ends and the bad starts. So this is the nature of the material world. There are perpetual ups and downs, happiness and distress. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us, Bhagavatam teaches us, again and again, this point is stressed that actually this is all simply mental concoction. We're mentally concocting that something is bad. Someone says something to me and I take offense, I get upset and all wound up, and then because of what they said, but maybe I haven't heard it right. Maybe they didn't actually mean it the way that they said it. Or even if they did, it's okay for me to change the story and see that Krishna has arranged for this person to say something really horrible to me, mainly because I needed to hear it, because I need to correct something in myself. King Chitraketu was cursed to be a demon. And he had the potency, probably, as we hear many of the personalities who get cursed, they have the potency to refute the curse. Parikshit Maharaj, the whole pastime is being told because Parikshit Maharaj has been cursed. He could have also refuted the curse. And and the whole thing turned out to be like, even, Shamiki Muni, his son, Shringi. So Shringi performed, he cursed him, and his father was like, "Why did you do that?" He was chastising. It was basically a young child's mistake. But Parikshit Maharaj said, "No, this is the Lord's mercy. This is the Lord's arrangement. Now let me prepare for death. Let me just take this." This is such a potent and powerful lesson that is not so easy for us to learn, actually, because we are so steeped in what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong, that if something apparently completely horrible happens to us, then we get absorbed in it, isn't it? The case, we just become completely consumed by the whole thing. Instead of, yesterday, the case stood for Krishna factor, instead of trying to see Krishna's hand in it. And if we can, then we can accept, okay, this may not appear to be so nice, but anyway, this is the Lord's arrangement. And what is it Prabhupada says time and time again? That the devotee doesn't care if they have to serve in heaven or in hell, just as long as I get service. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, let me take birth as a bug in the house, but please let it be in the house of a devotee, so I can at least take the remnants of the Vaishnavas. So this is the advanced platform. Of course, Prabhupada often talked about going back to Godhead, but he also said that going back to Godhead isn't the ultimate goal. All that a devotee wants is service, and that can be anywhere. So this is such a powerful, powerful point, but it may take us a long time to really come to the point where we don't get affected by what's happening to us externally. But as Baba Bhakti was saying, the thing that will make that possible is that our internal relationship with Krishna has to become very, very strong. And therefore, we're just puppets. What did Prabhupada say when he arrived at Boston Harbor and Markandeya Bhagavad Dharma? Just make me your puppet. Make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you like. And we were saying the other day that Prabhupada actually could have failed. We all may have never heard of Srila Prabhupada. He could have arrived in New York City, left his body. He could have left his body on the Jaladuta, prepared for there to be failure or success. That was up to the Lord. Whatever I'm just making the effort. Remember, we were talking about that the point is not necessarily success. The point is that we try. We make the endeavor again and again and again. We don't give up. And Prabhupada didn't give up. And fortunately, Krishna made him a success. And because of that, all of us are here. And we're all also success stories in the making by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada.
So the E, the word for the E, we put as engage constantly in chanting. And so in terms of how to become like Triketu, how to become focused and remain resilient, as it were, in the happiness and the distress that is going to come. And nowhere does Prabhupada say, yeah, if you take this chanting Hare Krishna, you won't experience that. You will. So how to remain like that is by constantly engaging in chanting. Now, in the Prabhupada says, A devotee accepts the distress of this material world as happiness only due to the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I was reading that thinking, I don't know about that. I'm accepting the distress of happiness. And how is this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually, yeah, how is this working? So then it's Prabhupada goes on to say, by his, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his personal behavior, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed that he was never distressed, but always happy in chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So again, I was thinking, yeah, okay, I chant my rounds. I still feel a bit annoyed. This stuff still comes. And then I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, no, this, for example, this retreat that we've been on for the past 8, 9 days, we've been chanting, dancing, been hearing Krishna, and definitely feasting, definitely feasting, seeking for this brief moment in time in our lives, this brief moment we have been experiencing what Srila Prabhupada is saying here in this little bubble that we've created just for this last like say 8, 9 days. We've had that. Okay, we've had to some of us have to deal with say work or otherwise you have to catch a moment where you're like catching up on the emails or the texts come in or this. But for the most part, we've just literally been like traveling sadhus, like we go from one holy place to another. We've all been together. We read about in the Chaitanya Charitamrita they would walk. They didn't have the coach driver. They didn't have, but still we've been doing the same thing, and all we've been doing is like nectar seekers because we've just gone from Shri Shri Radha Govinda Radha Murlida. Then we had Matches Gives, Tompkins Square, Radha Shamsunda, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, then Radha Damodar. That's all we've done, And if someone says, "Oh, if you go back to work," and they're like, "You was in America, you was in New York. What were you doing? Did you go down Fifth Avenue? Did you go on Broadway? Did you catch a play? Did you do this?" No, I went to all the best tourist spots and I met all the great personalities. And that's what we was doing. So I was thinking, for the time that, and it's sad, like Sridhar was saying, oh, it's coming to an end. And I was thinking, what does that mean, coming to an end? Yeah, because it feels like the bubble is coming to an end and it's going to get burst. We don't have to let it burst, though. As Prabhupada is explaining here, if we follow in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's footsteps, it can always be there. But then I thought, is it always there? Because you guys ain't always going to be here. We're not always going to be in that bubble. You will go back to your lives and whatever you're doing. And I was thinking, yeah, if we, as Prabhupada said, we have to learn to discriminate in our association to ensure that we always are around devotees that lift us, that raise our consciousness, that inspire us. So even until the next retreat or until the next time we go to the temple for a festival, that we're always feeling, yeah, this person likes to hear. Let me associate with them. I like the way this person chants. Let me sit with them. Let me create friendships. Like we saw this nice friendship now occurring between Smita and Parasut. It's nice. And that's the whole point of it. Not that we leave and say, I never want to see that person again, But you come together and you've got Krishna in the center. That's why you met and that's why you come together. So as in, yeah, we need to really do that. And if you saw in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, he was always just engaging and churning the nectar. Either someone's speaking to him or he's speaking, and he's always chanting and avoiding those people he felt all the pastimes as well, too worldly or too like this. He was always making sure, discriminating that his bubble was kept in certain ways. So I was thinking, yeah, this is how we, by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, can exist in this material world, which does have distress. Even just dealing with the physical body and getting older or ailments is distressing, let alone dealing with other people. It is miserable, let's be honest, and it's temporary. My dad, during the morning program, it was his 83rd birthday. And it was nice to speak to him, but it was also distressing to speak to him because he is older, he's not well, and he was sad as well. It was sad. It was like, so it was interesting. It was like he was happy, he picked up the phone because he knew he saw my number. And he was one example. There was happiness and distress. So what least that we can do by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada's mercy really is to remain in this Krishna conscious bubble by just following the process that Prabhupada has given us. And this retreat, I thought, was a wonderful example of that, actually, of just what did Prabhupada say? Just chant Hare Krishna, just read my books, do a little service and take a little prasad, whatever little is according to your ratio. But it's like, and that's all we did. And so we had a nice little snapshot of that actually on this retreat. And it was, yeah, it's just a lovely practical example of how to remain happy in this material world.
Was it Prabhupada? He gave one quote. He was saying to the devotees, all we do is chanting, dancing, and feasting. And some of the devotees said, Prabhupada, we do a lot more than that. We got to manage, we have to deal with this thing. And he said, no, all we do is chanting, dancing, and feasting. And they were like, but Prabhupada. And he said, no, all we do is chanting, dancing, and feasting. Because everything that we do outside of that is simply to facilitate chanting, dancing, and feasting. And so whatever we do, whenever we're having to do it, then as Bhagavatam was saying, to be in this bubble. So we want to leave some time for questions, answers, reflections. So today's acronym was forwards, for. F stood for future story. O stood for opposites. R stood for real. And E, engaged always in chanting. Yes. Constantly. That was the word. Engaged constantly in chanting. Okay. Anyone has any reflections, any questions, any thoughts? Yes, Rohan.
One thing that we saw at King to have educated, we had the potential, but we did not. He took it only. Another example you gave about Parikshit Maharaj, he could have refuted the first Gita. But in practical, it's like when should one not refute it and when should one refute it? Because also there are examples like in case of the Jew temple, when Mr. Nair was trying to get that whole temple from but refuted, it was a good fight to say again. So when should one refute and accept it in Islam to be, and when should one try to avoid one?
Yeah, beautiful. Good question. And this is yeah, we were discussing the other day that in Krishna consciousness, although sometimes we may think things are black and white, but very rarely is it black and white. It's often the gray area in between. And Ranath Maharaj once said to me that the in principle, Krishna consciousness is quite simple. He said, but the application is very difficult. Knowing how much of what to apply, when, and where is not always so easy. Therefore, we need to take guidance. So we need to have guidance. And sometimes, and you gave great examples, Prabhupada was the fight for Juhu Temple. All the devotees were like, Prabhupada, we're living in a swamp. Can't we just leave? Why are we staying here anyway? There's so much hassle. Isn't this a sign that we should stop? But Prabhupada was like, no. He was adamant. And Prabhupada was adamant because he had already installed Radharasa Bihari there on the ground, and he had already promised them that he would build them a temple. So he had given his word to God that he was going to do something. And therefore, for him, it was like he had to do it. So how do we know in our own personal life? Again, we have to speak with others. We have to check ourselves. But that also means that we take the time to create space. We don't react. And sometimes things come to us and we may have to accept it. Sometimes you may have noticed that you try to get around and get out of something that has come to you. And no matter how far you go, it keeps following you and you just can't get away from it. And you realize, okay, I guess I'm going to have to accept this. Anyone's had that experience? And sometimes we may realize that, okay, I just accept it and somehow it goes away. So again, it's having that consciousness that, okay, to see Krishna in it, that Krishna, you're bringing this to me. How should I respond to this situation? Is this something that I should try to defend against, or is this something that I should just humbly accept? But at least we should create that space of call to question and giving space for Krishna to intervene and to help us and to guide us. And if we have a mentor, if we have seniors that we have access to, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada's books, taking shelter of the deities directly. Srila Prabhupada said that in Vrindavan after installing Krishna Balaram. He said that now Krishna and Balaram are here, and if there's ever any difficulty, you simply come to them and you say, my dear Krishna and Balaram, this is the problem. I'm giving it to you. You help to figure out how we solve this. And we can do that wherever we are. You could go to Radha Gokulananda, Shri Radha Landanishwar, Ram, Lakshmana, Hanuman, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Shri Gauranitai. All these personalities are there. And we go to them and we ask, genuinely, with an open heart, I want to do the right thing, but what is the correct thing to do? And sometimes the correct thing may be to fight. The Pandavas also tried to get out of it in so many ways. They also didn't want to go to war. And even they sent Krishna. Even he tried to petition for peace. But in the end, war had to happen. So it's not that they just said, yeah, let's have a fight and let's kill them. It wasn't like that. Do you know what I mean? So there was still space. And even to the bitter end, Arjuna still wanted to leave. And Krishna had to speak with him the whole Bhagavad Gita in order to encourage him to fight. When he was giving so many arguments of why it's better not to. But eventually he was defeated by Krishna and he accepted and he so it's at least in our we should be clear that I feel like I should fight now, Krishna. I feel like I should, and but maybe that's not the right thing. What is the right thing? Then at least create that space. Does that make sense? So like that.
In the it says consider
that again.
First sentence it says I consider so I've experienced even in day-to-day work or in our dealings, sometimes we are so much covered. And later on we think, "Hey, why do that? Why they behave in that way?" Or even materially, certain thing is in front of you, but you just don't see it. So what is this covering?
So Maya. And there are two types of Maya. One is Mahamaya and the other is Yoga Maya. So sometimes we may be under the internal covering of the Lord, the internal energy, covering the internal energy of Yoga Maya, and it means Krishna is using us as an instrument in some way. Sometimes it may be that we're under the covering and conditioning of the external energy, and we're not actually conscious. And to this end, it's interesting you bring this up because there is something known as a paradigm shift, right? And often we can be situated we can be in a situation where we think it is a certain way. And the story that's often told is of a lady, she gets on the train and there's a man, he gets on the train and he's got a few kids and they're all running around and they're going crazy and they're doing stuff and he's staring out the window and all the people on the train are getting disturbed and the lady is becoming more and more and more disturbed by the fact that this man is not seeing to his children. So eventually, after several stops, she gets up and she goes to him, "Sir, do you realize that your children are running all over the place causing havoc? Don't you think you should do something?" And he just looks at her, it's kind of this blank expression. He says, "I'm so sorry. We just left the hospital. My wife, their mother, just died, and I'm a little shell-shocked, so please forgive me." And how do you think the lady felt? The whole paradigm changed. And what was the same exact situation, all of a sudden she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do to help you? Please forgive me," right? So sometimes we have to do that paradigm shift in our own head with the Krishna factor and just try to see things differently. But your question, did we just get covered and we find ourselves at the end of the situation without having any time to add Krishna into the situation? We wonder, why did I do that? So then we add Krishna in and reflect back, see what was it that caused me to act that way? And is it something that I need to learn how to adjust, amend? Krishna, please help me. How can I improve and not act this way in situations? Or was it that somehow Krishna must use me? Bhagavatam is that perpetually great personalities are saying, "Oh, this is the will of providence." Dhritarashtra says it, Yudhisthira says it, everyone the will of providence. And what is providence if you add definition in the dictionary? And we had like a whole debate about this once, but um, providence is actually the hand of God. This is simply the hand of God. Dhritarashtra is thinking, I know that I shouldn't support Duryodhan, but it's just providence. Everything that's going on here is providence that's leading us to this point, even though I know it's wrong. What is the question Arjuna asks of Krishna? What is it that makes a man act against his will, even though he knows better? What is Krishna's answer? Kama esha, krodha esha. It is lust only. It is the strong desire to enjoy and exploit the material world for our own pleasure. That is what often drives us to do things. So probably rarely we're under yoga. Often we're under Mahamaya. And my
I'll ask them before because it's late.
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, I think just ask, let's see if we can answer them.
So it's right. So people who
They were late, yes.
the sleeping man creates his happiness and distress by dreaming, although actually they have no existence. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a question. What do you think about dreams? Like, sometimes we see, like last night, I saw that we all were eating Maha Prasadam. So this morning, I woke up and I was like, oh, thank you, Lord, for allowing us to. But then it says it has got no existence. Sometimes you see sadhus in your dream. Some people say like, oh, I saw Prabhupada in my dream and Prabhupada instructed me to do this. So, but then also at the same time, sometimes we see things which are not very good. Like, what do we make out of it? Like, do we not think about it or?
Prabhupada said if you dream about spiritual things, then they have significance, otherwise they don't. Okay. Shri Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radhanandar ki jai. Jaya Radha Krishna Radha 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 Shri Radha Jaya Radha 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 Shri Radha Jai Shri Radha Dhamma Hey! The Tiger from the Case. Prabhupada. Sigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Hari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Shyam Kund Radha Kund the Gita Order Ki Yada Nam Ki Lakto Dam Ki Ganga Maya Ki Ganga Maya Ki Sidevi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Nagari Dama Ki Sri Radha Damodar Nadi Vishaka Devi Ki Shri Shri Gaura Sundar Ki Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Priyamrita Chansam Book Distribution Ki God Protection Ki Premalati Glorious How glorious to the assembly. How glorious the Lotus usually virtue. Glorious to Shri
All right, so your breakfast Prashadam is ready. So the coach will be coming here at 9:45. So we are planning to leave. Thank you very much.